My name is Architect Guneet Singh Khurana. On behalf of Team Archistudent, I welcome you all for today's session. I would like to thank ASHRAE Chandigarh chapter for extending their support for the event. I would also like to thank all the participants who have joined us live for the training. This is the first episode of the training series on architectural software, which will provide you with in-depth knowledge and information on different software used in architecture and design. Revit is a software product and a comprehensive workflow from Autodesk that helps architects, designers, builders, and construction professionals work together. The software is a sophisticated way to create models of real-world buildings and structures. It is primarily used in BIM or building information modeling. To provide us more insights about the topic Revit Architecture, a tool for BIM, we have with us architect Purvi Gupta, who is a practicing architect and a BIM coordinator. I request all the participants to kindly write down questions in the chat box. We'll be taking the question answer in the end of the session. Also would like to ask you to kindly subscribe our channel for the latest updates on the upcoming events. You can also join our Google group. Please find the link in the description box. Now, without any further delay, I would like to invite Ms. Gupta to take over the session and enlighten us with the subject. Over to Gupta, ma'am, please take over.
Thank you, Guneet. Hello, everyone. I'm Purvi Gupta. I'm an architect, and I have come into the BIM industry. I've done my B.Arch, and then I worked with KTGY Architecture and Planning. So I started my initial career. I started with KTGY Architecture and Planning. So that's where I got a boost for the BIM career. I got that it gave me an idea of what BIM is, what building information modeling that we have been talking about, that is going on around since a long time. It's been in the industry. So my introduction, my exposure to BIM was through this firm. It's an international firm. So basically, BIM had started from the international projects. So if you see, compared to what we have in India and what we have abroad, in BIM, building information modeling system, usually actually started with the projects that were mostly had the international standards. So moving ahead, I worked with many firms, building my career on the grounds of BIM. And then later, the latest job that I had, the latest profile that I had, I was working as a BIM coordinator with Avinash Navarti Architects, that was in Pune. So we used to coordinate between the models. We had a nice team set up where there were different verticals collaborating together to for the coordination, for working on the projects. So building information modeling, as it has always been, it has been in the market, is something that everyone has a different idea of what it exactly is. So sometimes I have come across people who have a misconception that building information modeling is just 3D. So Revit Architecture, that is one of the tools that we'll be exploring about the building information modeling today, is considered over here, like in the current scenario, Revit Architecture they consider it only for the 3D modeling. But then there is more to Revit Architecture than just 3D modeling. And as we are going to be exploring BIM and Revit Architecture, we'll be seeing how we are going to see the information, how Revit Architecture gives us the information that can be used in the market. I have a firm. I'm working as a firm. I have an architects archive firm that have opened, wherein I'm giving out trainings to students, to professionals, who want to enter the BIM industry. So this is basically it's a platform on which you can explore the software. You can explore different kinds of softwares that come under building information technology. So I have started with Revit Architecture, but later on we are definitely going to explore other softwares, and we'll be training on other softwares as well. Along with that, I also take up projects related to BIM where I have worked on the projects right from scan to BIM, from the laser to BIM, where we have converted CAD to the 3D models. But then these are all basics. So when you're actually talking about a building information modeling, you're talking about an end-to-end service. That does not only include architecture, it also includes other verticals as well. That is the MEP, that's structure and architecture. So whenever you're talking about BIM with anyone, whenever you're conversing about BIM, it is necessary for you to understand to understand that BIM is not just related to one single vertical, it is a collaborating system. So we'll explore what BIM is. You must have come across many people who have a debate on how Revit architecture is better than AutoCAD. In the professional field, you also must have experienced what AutoCAD does and what Revit architecture does. A small brief, if I have to tell you this, AutoCAD is mostly related to all the 2D drawings. So when you're working with an AutoCAD plan, so you are actually having different plans, different files for different type of plans. And at the end, when you have to collaborate between all of them, there might be chances that, you might get confused on what is what, like what plan is dedicated to what. Whereas in Revit architecture, it is just one project. You're working on just one file along with other aspects as well, where all the drawings are there together. Your sections, elevations, your plans, your WD, your details, all of them compile into one file. And that's a major difference between Revit architecture and AutoCAD, where Revit architecture will give you information. It's an information model. It has, every wall has an information, every door has an information, every element in the project that you're going to be using is going to give you out information. So a huge debate about Revit architecture versus AutoCAD has been doing rounds, and I hope at the end of this session, you also will be a part of it, and you will be able to justify why Revit architecture is better than AutoCAD. Exploring the BIM process, it is, so if we are going to say what is a BIM, so BIM process is divided into three parts. First is going to be the design part, second is the build, and third is the operation. So building information modeling as architecture, engineering, and construction professionals, that's the AE industry, the insight and tools to more efficiently plan, design, construct, and manage buildings and infrastructure. So it is basically a digital form. It is digitalizing your information. It is storing it somewhere, so that when you need to coordinate, when you're coordinating with different verticals, all of you are on the same page, all of you are on the same level, so that there is no miscommunication, there is no miscoordination between any of you. Let us explore the process a little in detail. So you start with your conceptual design, then you move on to the detailed design. So this part comes under the design process. Next comes the build form, where you analyze your data, you analyze the building, you do the analysis, you see how you have energy analysis to explore whether how much the building how much energy is being consumed while constructing this structure. After that, we have the documentation. So ultimately, documentation is also a crucial part, because when we are working with AutoCAD, we are documenting in 2D. We are documenting it on papers. We don't have a specific documentation system. So the BIM it introduces you to a system where the documentation and the scheduling, the streamlining of the whole process of the construction is done online. So that like we had mentioned, that everyone in all the verticals are aware of what the changes are being done. Next comes the operation. So the third part is one of the crucial parts again, because ultimately your operations takes it decides on how much time it's going to take. It decides on the scheduling. Then again, it decides on how much material you're going to be using on site. So the whole process together, where you're going to be estimating the material cost, you're going to be estimating the quantities of how much materials are going to come on site. Everything is done in the operating process. Also, I'll give you an example of one of the projects that I had worked on, where the client wanted to make a building information, a model with so much of information that 30 years down the line, if the client wanted to change the facade, we could just change it on the model, and then and that energy calculation that was reflected. So you just change the facade of that particular model, and you can automatically see what material is good for renovation at that particular time, with the particular age of that building. So again, where here comes your renovation, and then this is the programming, where BIM later we are going to explore what other things, what are the programming things, how BIM can be linked to other technology for the future. So these are a few numbers of, despite the technology advances, and, despite the way the technologies are growing, there are still some issues that needs to be tackled. So why are we exploring this whole process is because due to with the current market rate, 71 projects are over budget. There's almost the 60% of the projects fail at technology advances, because you as professionals must have noticed that on site, when you're on site, and when you need to resolve some issue on site, it just spoils the aesthetic of the building. So you just have a pipeline just coming outside, or if your services are not resolved properly, there will be beams, and your pipes are just going to go below the beams, rather than having a proper service system. So because of that, there'll be a lot of material wastage. There's going to be a lot of it's going to affect the economy. It's going to affect the budget of the project, because over time, as and when you're putting in the money, when the client is putting in the money, he is unaware of how much the cost is going to go up to. Whereas BIM will reduce that. BIM system is going to give the client a clarity of how much expenditure is going to happen, of how much he needs to spend on the materials, of how much he needs to spend on anything. So this process, with the current market rates, with the current challenges that we are experiencing, and with the current you see that your projects they just go ahead, they just get delayed by 6 months or more. That's because a proper streamline of the project is not being done. So the whole process, all these disadvantages are taken care of by BIM. These are a few site problems, the issues that we come across, where there are the drawbacks of the uncoordinated model. So why a coordinated model is very necessary is, you must have also come across these a few issues on your site. So where there's no coordination between two services, or there's no coordination between the local the person who is building and the site supervisor. Just a few images of what happens when there is no coordination between the verticals. We'll be exploring the few softwares that come under BIM. So we start with, so these are the overview of the tools that we'll be using under BIM, and we'll be exploring the use of each of these tools. So you have Revit Architecture that acts as an author. So by author, I mean an author writes a book. The brains behind the book is the authors. So the brains behind the design is going to be through the Revit Architect. architecture to the Revit, actually, not only architecture, because Revit itself is divided into different Revit. There's Revit architecture, there's Revit structure, there's Revit MEP. So all this together is going to be, it comes under Autodesk Revit. So Revit the major modeling of everything is done in the Revit. Later, once you have modeled, so once the building is modeled in architecture, there's information, there's building information of the structure vertical, there's information of the MEP vertical. Here, after we are modeling on these three, we collaborate them together, where we are linking the models together, and so this whole linking and collaboration is known as coordination. So this is known as a coordinated model, where we are linking the three verticals, and we are then taking it next to the Navisworks. So Navisworks basically shows you how it talks about coordination, and it talks about what clashes are going to be there. So if you have a service that is clashing with the code, it will, or the Navisworks will automatically generate a report for you, and it will show you that, okay, these are the pointers where the clashes are happening, and you will need to resolve it. So Navisworks is good for the collaboration and coordination. It will generate a report for you where it shows you the amount of clashes, and ultimately after this, we move on to the BIM review. 2019 is just a version where the scheduling, estimation, and the PDF coordination is done. We'll explore this a little more in the later slides. After that, there is SketchUp. Yes, SketchUp is a part of BIM. Most people will argue that SketchUp is not a part of BIM, but it is a non-BIM modeling. But then your SketchUp model, you will be taking it to the virtual reality when you are when we working on virtual reality model later. Then we have the 4D tool and the 5D BIM tool, which we'll be again exploring in the later slides. To give you a short information, 4D, the 3D, 4D, 5D, what we are talking about is, it is just a dimension. It is an extra dimension that is being added to the whole system. So when we talk about 3D, we are talking about three coordinates, that's X, Y, and Z. But when we talk about 4D, there comes a time, there comes the time parameter. So what the time parameter does is, it will schedule, it will streamline your project into proper parts. It will schedule your project so that at a particular day on site, this work should be completed. So this is a whole project management that the project management team works on this. So to implement the construction properly. Then you have the 5D tool, where you have the cost estimation and the scale and the quantity calculations and everything that is done through the M2. And lastly, you have the Tekla, where the structural analysis and design is done. So these are just a few tools that come and fall under BIM. But if you go to see, there are actually huge lists of tools that come under BIM. But then these are the things that you can start with. So we are all here to see how BIM can be useful for the industry and for you as on a professional level. So even if you're working with with a firm, or if you're starting your own business, you can start with the basics of these tools, and then later you can start exploring the other tools. So what your Revit architecture does is, specifying more on Revit architecture because in this. So what your Revit on a whole also does is, it's an information model. So by information model, we mean that the walls are going to contain information, your doors, windows, ceilings, your light fixtures, the whole model on the earth, at what location it is placed. So these are all information that the model is generating. And that's why we call this an information model. Second is the cost estimation. So if you have a particular wall, you want to remove the cost of the wall, you can do that easily through Revit. There's quantity calculation, that how much quantity, how much plaster is needed on site. So, accordingly, you can, how much paint is needed on site, you can accordingly order those paints, and there is the budget will be, so it is all going to be in budget. There's material takeoff of, again, how much materials is required. So if again talking about the paints and the plasters, the brickwork, how much material is required on site, the mortar, everything can be calculated very easily through Revit. There are coordination of models where we have, like we had spoken, there were three verticals: architecture, and MEP, and we have to coordinate these models, take them further to Navisworks for clash detections. So the coordination of model is really very important because these act as separate entities that needs to be brought together to complete the building virtually. Then we have the complete WD set where you can easily complete your the WD set 3 where we do the detailings. So you can easily complete WD set where we can detail out each and every portion, because since we are working with 3D, you already have the joint fixtures and everything done on site, done on the model over there. All you need to do is detail with using annotation lines here and there, and along with your setting out and the center line plan that is required in the WD set. Moving further, we have the design options. So there are instances where you have a model and you want to design the facade, and you want to explore the different designs of the facade, or you want to explore different designs of how my portal is going to look, how my fins are going to look. So all these you can have permutation combination of different elements, and you can set your design options. So it is that easy to work on Revit. Moving ahead, we have the conceptual. When you have what you get is immediately start designing. You can start placing your blocks and designing on Revit itself, where it is all done through massing. So your massing gives you, so if you have a plot, so you have you have setbacks, you have FSI calculations, and you know that my building is going that this much XYZ area is required for the whole building, or that this much area is allowed for construction. So conceptual massing will help you to analyze your block. It will help you if suppose if you want to divide them into two blocks, it will help you analyze how much area is being used for each blocks. So accordingly, you can decrease and increase, and you can play around with your concept with the mass to have a dramatic effect for your for the model or for your design also. So conceptual massing, personally, I really love modeling with conceptual massing and design options and facade development, because it allows me to explore it. It gives me an upper hand of parametric modeling, or how I want to play around with different forms. Then we have the facade development that also I'll be showing you a few of my works for the facade development as well, where you can have different kinds of facades. You can play with different parameters to form different structures. So the material take where we have entered the material area. So this schedule shows us the material area. It shows us how what the length, breadth, and the height of the volume of the particular brick or the particular wall is, and that's how you can calculate your materials through these. This is for the cost estimation, where we manually enter the costs for the particular material, because Revit it's globally known. So it will not recognize what currency you're talking about. So you need to set your currency before giving out before entering the current market rate. So again, after once you go for the cost estimation, there are a few formulas, there are a few tricks here and there that needs to be applied while doing the cost estimation. This is coordinated where we have coordinated MEP, structure, and architecture together. So for presentation purpose, you can always cut it. You can have a cut section for the 3D and see what is happening inside and what the other services are. So basically, 4 models were coordinated in this particular project. That was the Revit Architecture, Revit MEP, Revit Structure, and landscape. So landscape was also done separately, because the landscape architects also were working on Revit. And yes, you can work on Revit if you are a landscape architect. These are a few clash detections that we found in Revit. So this is not a Navisworks clash detection. This is a Revit architecture clash detection where you can see a highlighted where it is showing you how a service, how a pipeline is clashing with the existing beam or an existing column. So this is a very nice way if you want, if you before taking it to Navisworks, if you still want to explore what the clashes are, you can always explore it in Revit architecture as well. Though Navisworks will give you a report, because in Revit architecture you will have to manually search in Revit actually you will have to manually search for the clashes. Navisworks will automatically give you those it will show you the clashes that are happening around. This is the massing that I was talking about, where you have the conceptual mass, you have placed the mass, and you have divided your building such to have, to have a nice aesthetic design, as well as accommodate all the areas that you have calculated for, through your FSI and other calculations. This is a facade development of how iteration of the facade was done through the different design options. So this was all a design option where I had played with different elements to achieve a certain design option. So this was a final product of how the design options are done. So also while working with the design options, there are many tools in Revit that will actually help you. It will actually it's very exciting to work on Revit, because once you get a hold of the software, you start exploring it more. So the more you explore, the more you realize how exciting it is to work on it, how much information you can get. Navisworks project where you can see that there are few colors dedicated to the structure, and these colors, according to these colors, a report is generated that you can see below. So all this is nothing but you just need to resolve those clashes, and your model is good to go. This is one of the projects where at the below you can see the site photographs, and on the top left hand side you can see the Navisworks walkthrough. So you can actually give different colors to different pipelines, so that when there is a clash, in the clash report it will show you the colors as well. So it is easier for you to identify what is clashing with what. So like you can see, the greens is for the pipelines, blue is for the pink is for the fixtures, and the blue is for the other types of pipes as well. So in case there are any clashes, along with color coding, Navisworks will generate the report for those specific. In the middle, you can see two images. The one on the left is architecture, structure, and MEP. But over here, we see that the structure is it is hitting the architecture facade. So the left one is the unresolved issue, where there are clashes, and the right side pick is the resolved issue, where we have decreased the structure so that the clashes are reduced, so there is no clashes. So Navisworks is a very, very nice way to identify the clashes, but you need to have your model you need to have a very precise, a very specific model for your Navisworks. So you cannot you cannot just have an uncoordinated model tend to have more errors. So it is always advisable that you first coordinate your model in Revit amongst all the three verticals. Coordinate it. You will have a lot of errors. You will resolve those errors in each file, and then once you have resolved the errors, when you have done the coordinations, once you have set the shared coordinates for the whole project, that's when you will be bringing it into Navisworks for further clash detections. Bluebeam it's a very nice tool where you can actually produce your PDFs. You can you can give markups. You can have and all these markups are actually recorded. So you need not really save them manually. All these are recorded. So when you reopen the drawing next time, it'll show you that, okay, these were the markups and these were your comments. So if it is completed, you can always update those comments, and the whole information will be stored in the PDF file, in the PDF format, uh, in Bluebeam. So this is just a small draft of how the Bluebeam looks, what the interface is like, and how easy it is for you to navigate around and do the markups. This is a laser scan to BIM. Now, what is a laser scan is sometimes when we are working with projects, it is impossible for you to model those projects as it is in Revit, because sometimes there might be situations where chances where you don't have the dimensions of that particular building. Suppose if it is a historical building, and if it's a private building, you're not allowed to go and have the the measurements or anything. So that's where the laser scan comes in play, where the laser scan, so there is data stored online, there's the data stored for all the sites, and laser scan, what it is, through the drones, it will scan the whole building, and all the coordinates, all the points it'll pick up all the points, and all the that whole points are converted, they are all put into the Revit modeling. So in this project, in this point cloud, so this is also something similar, point cloud, where through the drones, your whole building is scanned with all the coordinates from everywhere, and the data is stored, and it is then transferred onto Revit. So on the left side you see is the point cloud data, and the right hand side is the building that is developed through the point cloud. So point cloud is again, it's a very interesting concept, where you can have even all the depths of it actually takes the information of all the depths, all the points that are included, that are around the building or over the building. So point cloud to BIM is another, it's another workflow in itself. So working with point cloud is again, it's a very interesting concept. This is again a point cloud data. It's a model of a historic museum, where the points were collected through the drones, and it was executed. It was then put into the Revit for the to take the model further. Also, there are systems where through the drones, they actually can record the survey lines. So sometimes what happens, you don't get the exact topography, you don't get the exact depth of the topo surface. So what happens, there are companies that have come up with drones that they just fly the drones over the particular area, and those pick up all the depths or the points from that topography. So it is more accurate to have a drone take the image and then convert it into the and then bring it into the model. So moving ahead, we will explore what different dimensions are going to be there in building information modeling. So this is basically of how any structure or how any project is going to be executed. So first that we have is 3D. 3D is third dimension. Third dimension means you have your X, Y, and Z coordinates. So I'll just simplify this for you while explaining. The fourth, when it comes to 4D, that in 4D you have the time that is involved. By time, I mean you have a schedule, you have a timeline, you have times allotted to certain activities on site. So if it is a 30th day on site, on the 30th day, this particular task should be completed. So if you have a scheduling done like in this form, the project will there's not good, the budget is going to be the way it is. Also, you will finish your work as per the time, and you will not have delays in the projects. So when we talk about 4D, there is time that comes in. The 5D has the estimation, where you have the cost estimation, where you have the the material takeoffs, and so if you read, it has the quantity extractions to the support the detailed cost estimates. So mostly 4D and 5D are considered a little crucial part, because these are because the whole process is going to be based on these two. So 4D and 5D will be it is something that you need to be more careful on. Moving ahead for the 6D, you have the sustainability, where you know how sustainable your model is, because currently we are also taking in consideration that how energy efficient your model is, or how energy efficient your building is going to be, because you know, due to the environment, the problems that are going on around, you need to be very you also need to implement that into your buildings as well. So 6D, you have sustainability over here, where all the where everything related to the green buildings are executed under 6D. And lastly, you have the 7D, that's the facility management. So you have the as-built over here, you have the everything that is all the information that is exchanged digitally, that will all be managed in 7D. Lastly, we will see the LOD. LOD is level of detailing. So as the name says, level of detailing means how much detailing is going to happen in the particular model. So if you are talking about LOD 100, it is going to be something that is very basic, something that will be almost at a conceptual level. Next comes the LOD 200, where you have the criteria. So just 1 minute. Okay, so you have the criteria design, where you LOD 200 has a little more information than what you had in the 100. So as and when we proceed further, you have the more LOD, the more level of detailing, the more details your model is going to have, the more information your model is going to have. So like you see in LOD 300, there is we are talking more about the materials in detail. So we have added the glass and the paint. So initially in LOD 100, we did not have any materials. In LOD 200, suddenly we are talking about a glass material. In LOD 300, we are talking about other materials and insulations that are involved in the building. Moving up to the LOD 400, we are talking about the how different structural materials are going to come. So here comes your steels and where you're going to actually assess. You are going to have a very detailed assessment of your model. And lastly, in the LOD 500, you have the rebar detailing and the rebar detailing for the columns, for the beams, for the slabs of what thickness is there, what kind of rebars you're going to use, what tension, what steels are going to use, what material of the steels are going to be used. All of those will be seen in LOD 500. So ideally, when you're starting a project, it is advisable that you first reach till LOD 300, where you start detailing out the materials, and then move on to LOD 400 and 500. So usually the projects, whenever you start, you need to just aim to come to LOD 300, and then later, as and when you're exploring, you will realize how capable or how much how you can actually reach the LOD 500. But then that's at the later stage. LOD 300 is something that is very that you need to reach first. And we'll explore the Revit Architecture tool a little in detail. So, and then we will come back to this thing. So this was all about an introduction to BIM and how BIM is going to be useful for for different type of projects that you're going to use, what softwares you can start with, and what you can aim for. So this was just streamlining the BIM information into a very simplified manner. There are a few things that you will need to know that. So we have collaboration for Revit. So that's known as C4R. So collaboration for Revit, it's a critical part of the BIM execution plan. So BIM execution plan is BEP. So these are a few terms that you need to be aware of. And everything that is happening in the BIM is so where where we are where we are exchanging different datas, where we are having different what do you call it, where you're exchanging data, where you're scheduling, where you're having cost estimations. This whole environment that we are working on is known as the common data environment. So common data environment means where all the data is commonly being shared amongst each other. So uh, in BIM, it is very easy. It is very good that in the coordination, everyone is aware of what is happening. So I think we'll have a question answer round as well. So I'll just skip the Revit. So lastly, once we are done, once we have done coordinating in the BIM environment, the next step after BIM is going to be the VR. So we are going to take the model into virtual reality and execute it. So if you're working with the client, so this is a very nice point to mention, where the client can actually, where the Oculus Go and along with the controls, the client can actually roam around the whole building. So that was just for one building. BIM is BIM to VR is also VR or AR is also executed for the services. So like you see in this image, you have the whole service, but it's like an X-ray vision. It's so wherever there are any clashes, you can actually see that through the tabs that you're having, through the apps that you're having. Also, I wanted to mention one more thing, that there are many times there'll be chances that the client will not have the software to work on. So like we are in the construction industry, we are going to be working on Revit, amongst us, but then the client also needs to be updated on what is happening and what is going on. So there are apps available where it is just for viewing, so the client can easily just download it on his mobile, and he can view whatever is happening in the project. Also, there are apps that store the information such that whatever is updated, whatever information is being changed or updated or resolved, everything be created in the form of a report, and the clients just go back and see on what particular day what issues were being resolved. So this is a very nice process of a coordination. So even if you don't have the software with you, there are a few apps available that you can just download on the tab, and you can view it something like this. So VR and AR also play a very major role when we are talking about building information modeling. So lastly, this is, scanning frequently allows teams to verify that the work in place matches the original design. So hence, VR and AR could revolutionize construction, but there are the big challenges. But then it is our responsibility as professionals and students to take the step towards towards BIM industry, because this is where the future of architecture actually lies. So with this, I would like to end the whole presentation of how Revit is useful for BIM, and what are the other features that we have explored in BIM. So I'm open for any questions that we are having.
All right. Thank you, Purvi. I suppose there were a lot of things, a lot of information which you have shared would definitely be of very good interest to the others. And there are few questions that we can take up now. So you can just switch off your screen share. So we'll just take up the questions, right? Okay. So we'll start with Akash Kumar. He says he's a student. He says, what fresher can do after learning Revit?
As a fresher, you will get an offer of BIM modeler. So I would suggest once you're graduated from college, and if you know Revit very well, you will get an option of a junior architect and a BIM modeler. So usually I would suggest you, if you're an architect, you don't go for the modeler position, but then ultimately as a junior architect also you're going to be modeling. So it will be good if you opt for firms that use Revit architecture. So because the firms that the upcoming firms who are using Revit will ultimately they are aiming to get into the BIM industry. So maybe through them you will you can streamline your your the way you want, what you want or what interests you. So choose a firm that that uses Revit architecture full fledged, so that you can get into the industry.
All right. So another question is how to be a BIM manager.
BIM manager is a very later stage. So before BIM manager, if you are an architect, you'll be a BIM architect. If you are an engineer, you'll be a BIM engineer. So even before getting into BIM, architect and engineer, after graduation, you're going to start with a junior architect post, junior architect or a junior engineer. After that, you're going to be placed as going to be a BIM architect. Then you have the BIM coordinator, and then you have the BIM manager. BIM manager have a lot of responsibilities because they are working on multiple projects, with multiple timelines. Because, like I mentioned initially, that India is very slow in adapting the BIM projects, but the MNCs, the projects that are that are in compliance with the international standards, they have come onto the BIM. They have come onto BIM, and BIM managers will have to they have a lot of responsibilities. So initially, I would say you aim for becoming a BIM architect first, where you learn the whole environment. You learn what happens, because in this 1 hour session there are many things that I could know that were not touched in detail, but because BIM in itself is a huge world, so you will need to get a hands-on experience on the BIM before going further as a BIM coordinator and then the manager.
Right. Ms. Bahul says, in how many days I'll be able to learn Revit?
The course that I think is it's a 20-day course. So it's going to be a fast forwarded. It's going to be a course full of tips and tricks of how you're going to be working in the office. So right, because there are going to be many points where in many courses where they get too much into details about every element. But the course that I'm offering, that I'm going to take, is going to be, it's going to help you get through. It's going to be a 20-day course, but you will need to practice it regularly. You need to be a very, you need to, what do you call it? Just don't miss out on any classes, and practice regularly. And within 20 days, we can cover your whole course. And later, after 20 days also, we are always available to answer any queries. So this is all about tips and tricks of how you can work around in a professional way.
Okay, to this I'd like to add that Purvi has given a form in the description, so whoever wishes to join the complete course on BIM or Revit or any other software, so you can just fill up that form, and all the information will be shared with Purvi. All right. So
Right.
next question comes from Simran, and she says, I want to know about lighting in Revit.
Uh, that's a very vague question. Lighting in Revit. So I'll just try to answer it a little. So lighting in, you have light fixtures in Revit that they have their own properties. So lighting in Revit will be more, it will be more mandatory when you're working on the renders. So if you want to render any particular element or any particular scene in Revit, the interior lightings will play a very nice role. Also, your lighting will be handy when you're doing the analysis. So if you're working with energy analysis, we'll not be covering energy in the course, but then this is just for your information. When you're working with the energy analysis, there is a software called Ecotech. So your lighting, the how much consumption of light is taken by the whole building. So all those calculations will be done through the fixtures that you're going to be adding in Revit.
Right. There's another question by Divya Goyal, and she says, want to pursue BIM for my master's. So what are the job prospects in India and other countries?
pursuing BIM for masters, I would suggest you go abroad and work, because there are much better opportunities outside than what you have in India. So if you're pursuing masters, I would suggest you try masters. First of all, before getting into masters for BIM, I would suggest you read about BIM and be very sure whether you really want to get into this industry, because this is once you're into this, once you've started giving time to BIM, it will be very it will just be a waste of time if you at the end of 3 or 4 years you realize that, okay, this is too much for me, and I am not interested in this. So before getting into masters for this, I would suggest you attend webinars, you check out the articles, you see there are many papers published on different arguments on what BIM is, and then take a call whether you really want to in BIM.
All right. Naman says, is Revit has an advanced V-Ray plugin for rendering which gives best results in rendering?
It does. It does.
Right.
So, when you're taking the Revit model to the VR, you are actually going to take it through the V-Ray. You're going to render it in V-Ray, and then you're going to take from V-Ray to the Unity, where you're going to process it for the virtual reality, and then then that model is ready for your virtual reality. So yes,
Right.
you have plugin for V-Ray.
So connecting to that, there's another question by Manish. He says, can we design our own furniture in Revit?
Yes, you can design your own furniture. You can you can give different parameters to the to your furniture, but then it is advisable that if you are into interior designing, don't Revit architecture will be Revit will be something that will it will not be that useful for you. So you'd rather use SketchUp, because you have there's free flow of modeling. You have an upper hand of customizing your model better in SketchUp. So if you're specifically talking about furniture design and everything, there are other softwares as well, like Rhino. You have the Dynamo for parametric modeling. So you can take them up and you can easily customize and model your furnitures and products in that.
All right. So there's another question by Akash Vasant. He's a civil engineer. He says, how this is useful for small projects like housing projects. We usually see this is a question which comes most of the times. Like people say that this Autodesk is producing AutoCAD and Revit and other softwares also. So in these small projects, we should go in for AutoCAD rather than Revit or maybe ArchiCAD or whatever the other softwares are there in the market. So, how do you justify this? How this is very useful for small projects like housing projects or maybe any other projects?
See, when we are talking about BIM, building information modeling, no matter how big or small your building is, it is going to have information. And it ultimately our aim when we are using this system is so that we have a proper budget. Our project is streamlined. There is no, we don't go overboard with the with the time. So even if you have a small housing project, working with BIM will give you a lot of information. It will give you estimates. It will give you tell you how much material you need to use. So even if it is a small project, it is still it's a coordinated model. So if you're starting with Revit, if you're starting any project in BIM, no matter how big or small it is, you can always work on this, and it's always advisable that over AutoCAD you use this process, because again there's a lot of information that needs, and also even if you're modeling a small bungalow, your bungalow will need a renovation at some point of the time. So at that point, in the current market, what a particular materials rate is, you can actually replace the particular. So suppose if you have a wall that needs to be renovated, so you can actually put that in your model. You can see how much energy is being consumed, how much material can be used, how much your building can be beneficial for the environment, because ultimately when you see these are the parameters that we are going to be considering later when you are going to construct your own buildings. So no matter how small the project is, you use it on BIM. It's a good practice.
All right. So next question is from Ayushi. She says, can we get into BIM industry after just 1 year experience in the field of architecture?
Sure, you can do that as long as you so your work should speak for yourself. You should be confident enough that okay, I have these particular skills, and I want to explore them. See, even if you don't have an experience in anything, you can just learn your Revit architecture as a tool, and have a little theoretical knowledge from all the webinars that are freely available. You can have a little information. You can follow pages on LinkedIn, be active on LinkedIn. You will have a lot of technologies that are the updated technologies that are the upcoming. So you can explore that and you can use that. You can getting into BIM is not, you need not have any experience for getting into BIM. If you are even a college student, you can get into BIM immediately after graduation. So there's no time limit, there's no experience limit, but then yes, once you're into BIM, then the experience counts. So if you're in college and if you have already started thinking that, okay, I want to enter the BIM industry, it's a very good thing, because ultimately the revenues and everything is going to be you're going to get good results out of it, and
All
it's
right.
again the future of architecture.
Right. So there's another question by Akshay Ved, and he says, can we actually learn BIM by our own if we have worked in Revit architecture?
See, working on your own with BIM will not be much helpful, because when you're working at BIM, it's a coordination model. So by coordination, we mean we are working in a team. So no matter how much theoretical knowledge you get, you also need a practical knowledge along with that. So working with firms who are working on BIM will give you a nice exposure of how to handle projects. Once you get that exposure, once you get how to how to work around with different projects, you can definitely start taking up projects on your own. For starters, what you can do is you can start taking projects, or you can start taking design projects, design it on Revit. You can model your MEP, and you can explore the MEP and structure model, do it on your own, have a coordinated model, and maybe through online tutorials and all, you can or maybe the courses like we are offering, you can join them and you can explore how you can get further onto Navisworks and how other softwares are going to be beneficial. But I would suggest you first have a practical experience with an existing BIM manager or an existing BIM coordinator, because they will be able to tell you what is happening in the market better.
All right. So we'll just take 3 last questions. Pawan saying, architects know to operate it. Since we are talking about BIM, this involves multiple stakeholders from labor to facility management, and almost all have zero knowledge about BIM. Can you elaborate on this?
Yes. When you're working with the Indian projects, there you will come across many hurdles where you are working on the BIM, but then your consultants are not working on BIM. So in that case, I personally have worked on projects where we have had so much problem where the consultants are hiring someone else to work on their models, and then they are sending the models to us. That is so. Currently, till Indian projects, Indian market will take a little time to get onto this industry, but then people who are in the industry, they realize how important this is, and how you can how it is beneficial for them as as stakeholders, or as the people as clients. So yeah, so basically, when you're working with a project, try to find consultants who are already onto the BIM before starting the project on BIM. Otherwise, it will be a roller coaster for you, and you won't be able to complete the project in time, and there'll be a lot of miscommunications here and there.
All right. So Arif Zia, sorry, we'll take one question from Bandhan Mishra first. She says, what is minimum system configuration required to operate BIM? Do you have any idea for this?
Minimum configurations, I think if you just Google it, you will get, because I really don't remember the exact configurations, but then I think 4 GB graphic card should do 2
See,
to 4.
I can comment on this if you want.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for a basic system which has a basic configuration, so with a generic cost model, so you can go in for i5 with a maybe a latest 10th generation motherboard, so processor, sorry. So it will give you a good graphics, and along with that it solve your purpose for the basic purpose for doing the visualizations and all. So, and if you want to invest more, and if you want to get into more advanced 3D visualization, so you can also go in for i7 with a graphic card, better graphic card from any decent company, right? So
Yeah.
okay, so last and final, there's a question by Mr. Arif, and he says, one universal question comes: when is Revit going to introduce compatible version for Mac? So this is something which I think
A lot of
um,
people have that question.
yeah.
There are, so there is a parallel, there is parallels that is there that you can install in Mac. So parallelly you can have a Windows system and then you can install Revit onto that. That's a question that even I am wondering. So let us put it on the Autodesk forum together. Let's see what they have to say.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a question for the owners of this system.
Yeah, actually, ideally, it is logical to remove Revit architecture from Mac as well, because there are a lot of Mac users also, and it's more professional. They need to explore their market. They need to expand their market more. So
Hmm.
let's put it on the forum and see what Autodesk has to reply on that.
Yeah, definitely. If somebody like who are certified and who actually takes up this question, so definitely company is going to reply to that, and I'm sure they'll be getting up with a new version for the Mac very soon. All right. So
Right.
by this we come to the end of the session. So thank you, Ms. Purvi, for such an informative discussion on Revit architecture, a tool for BIM. I'm sure it would help everyone learn and understand the field and step ahead with a great skill. Right. For further query or to join the complete course, I would request everybody to kindly check the form in the description. If you want to do the complete course on Revit architecture, or maybe BIM, or any other software if you have any, so you can just fill up the form, and Purvi will take up from that. All right. Thank you
Sure.
to our participants for attending the session, and thanks to Ashray Chandigarh chapter for supporting us. Uh, I would again request everybody to subscribe to our channel, and so that you get all the updates on the latest upcoming events and webinars. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Purvi, for taking up this session. All right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Guneet.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks a lot.
everyone. Take care. Bye.